Thanks, Nate. I'm excited to get to talk to you a little bit about 1,000 Young Leaders. You've been hearing a little bit about it. So in the next 30 minutes, just want to share a little bit of the vision of 1,000 Young Leaders. Want to show you what our online digital platform looks like, and then just share a couple of stories of some of the folks that are like becoming like family to me and Erin Gilzo. She leads one of our huddles for 1,000 Young Leaders. And then Phil and Kyrie Klopke, who you'll get to see here in just a second. But Tim, if you want to take us in, just a quick review of the things you've been hearing. The United States is the third largest mission field. Within that mission field, 73.4 million of them are millennials. For us, that's age 21 to 36. Okay, that's the age range we're looking at. And we firmly believe that this is an opportunity for us to invite them in to be a part of the life of the church, to the life of the gospel, and to participate in that. And so, what's our strategy? We really hope, like what you've been hearing so far this morning, this afternoon, that when we can engage in that kind of mission field, that we're not just tweaking programs, we're not just changing worship styles or worship times, but that we're equipping and sending missionaries into that mission field. That sticks with me. Because my friends, my neighbors, the folks who I love dearly who are not following Jesus, while we have tried to invite them to our worship services, for many of them, that's not the place where spiritual conversations are going to happen first for them. My good friend Matt, who lives across the street and down just a little ways, is just one of the most natural inviters that I know. He wants to make a difference in the neighborhood, in the city. He's planning to host a crawfish boil that'll have 300 people and raise $10,000 to prevent childhood abuse in Middle Tennessee. I mean, he wants to do good. He's all in on that. He's got networks of people. But when we invited him to worship, he's like, no, that's just not my thing. He believes in a higher power. He prays to the universe. And the place that we learned about those things, where we had those conversations, were not in a church building. They were on the golf course, which meant that I had to be present in his life where he was, not expect him to come to where I would hope he would hear something that would change his life. God is changing his life through me as I'm present in our neighborhood. We want to raise up and invest in millennials to be able to do that very thing wherever they live, wherever they work, wherever they play. Our co-directors are Phil and Kyrie Klopke. Their son Porter, who definitely carries the weight of the team for sure, is my godson. Love that dude, and excited and love getting to serve alongside of these guys. Just incredible friends. We want to be able to help shift a couple of paradigms. We want to be able to invest in these leaders in a way that they're able to not just do whatever they're told to do, but to be able to lead effectively regardless of the kind of context that they're in, regardless of the cultural pressures and challenges that they face. So to do that, we want to help them discover good news. Hopefully you're experiencing that a little bit here in D2MC. We want them to be able to celebrate the good news and be able to communicate that good news. Jesus died for the forgiveness of sins, but the gospel is not just forgiveness. The gospel is also God's presence. The gospel is also God's strength. The gospel is also, I mean, you could go on down the list. Jesus gives everything. And so we want to equip them to be able to give that good news as they listen to their neighbor and hear about their story. How does Jesus meet them in their need? Maybe it's forgiveness, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's in a different way where they encounter the good news of Jesus. We want them to be able to enter new territories. This is huge. We had one of the guys in my huddle, He grew up, his dad is an LCMS pastor, and as a kid, he was told every week, son, what happens in the church is church. Anything that happens outside of the church is not. And it's this guy who hosted a party at his house with some friends who are not believers, probably for the first time in his life. And he came back to our huddle the next week and he said, you guys, I'm learning that I need to preach less and listen more. Like, yes, amen, absolutely. He is entering a brand new territory. And we're about 4 months in. That happened about 2 months ago. So within 2 months, within about 8 to 10 weeks, we're hearing these kinds of things from our very first cohort to go through. We want them to be able to navigate cultural change. So whether you're living in a community where your neighbors, you have lots of folks who are part of the LGBTQ community, how is Jesus going to be good news in that community? Maybe you have racial tensions in your community. We want to help you navigate that cultural change in a way that's effective and good news to that community. We want to develop personal character in them. We all probably signed up to be a part of D2MC or have gone to conferences or desire to learn things because we want tools, we want strategies, we want to know how to take the next step. All really good things. But if we don't touch people's character, then we're making a huge assumption that skill will be enough to carry them through to navigate cultural change. We want God to work through them, and we know that in order to do that, sometimes God wants to work in you before he works through you. So we develop personal character. We want to shift missional ownership. You guys are on board with this. This is why you're here, because you want everyday, ordinary, baptized people of God to be living out the mission of God. And we do that in a very active way. And then we want to do it in a healthy way, so pursuing life rhythms. The way we deliver 1,000 Young Leaders is to be extremely respectful and sensitive to the fact that they have very busy lives. Whether they're single, they're just out of college, they're a young professional, they're a farmer, they have this profession or that profession, they are married, not married, have kids, don't have kids. We want to be able to invite them to be a part of this process while also respecting everything that they have going on in their lives. So the way that we do that is we invest in 3 different modules, 3 different areas of emphasis. The first one takes about 6-7 months for us to go through, increase your influence. We want them to recognize that God doesn't have to ask you to stir up something brand new and create something out of scratch in order for you to be involved in his mission. We want you to recognize that he's already at work where you are, and we just want you to join him in that. So what's going on in your workplaces? What kinds of relationships do you have in your neighborhood? And if not, let's invite and let's create those relationships. Let's be active where God's already at work. The second thing is one that I'm really excited about. It's called Activate Your Identity. This one is just incredibly powerful because oftentimes the only Christian example that is modeled for them is the person that's up front. So if you can't speak like them or lead like them, then you must not be able to be a leader. We want to help them identify what has God woven into your DNA? How has he uniquely created you so that you could live out the gospel according to the passions and the strengths and skills and the context that you have in a unique way where you are. So we help them activate their identity. They're not striving for identity. They're not activating some action plan so they can gain their identity. We are functioning out of a gospel-centered place where God made you this way. And as a son or daughter, this is how we're going to follow Jesus and make a difference. The final one then is about multiplication, maximize your impact. We want this to be something where they can take it for themselves, but then multiply it into other people. Not just acquire skills or character for themselves, but to be able to invest it in other people. These are the 3 ways that we do it. We teach it, we train it so they can try it. Hugely important. What actually leads the way here is not the teaching and not the training. When we designed 1,000 Young Leaders, we didn't ask the question, what do we want them to know? We asked the question, what do we want them to do? And so at the end of 2 years, we hope that they are making disciples and leading a community on mission. And so because of that, then we script everything for the 2 years backwards so that what they're learning and what they're trying puts them in a place to be able to first fail at it and then be successful at it. We know that you don't get it perfectly the first time around. Let me say that again for the perfectionists. You're not going to get it perfect the first time around. And if you don't have a community of people around you to encourage you the first time you fall down, you may not want to get back up. And that's why we huddle people. That's why we have the train it piece. That's why every Wednesday night, last night, I wasn't able to be with many of you last night as you got together because I was with my huddle from 8:15 to 9:30 every Wednesday night, and this is my absolute favorite hour of the week. Those folks that you see there in the train it, that little screenshot from San Diego to Wisconsin to here in Chicago, those guys are courageous. I'm just so proud of the ways they're trusting God and listening to each other and the ways that they're praying for each other. One of the young women on that screen, her name is Danica, and her sister Diana is someone that's been heavy on her heart for a long time. Diana not only doesn't go to church, but has been resistant to the idea of church for a long time. Danica, in week 3 of this huddle, so starting November 1st, by Thanksgiving, she had shared with us, you guys, if you don't mind, in kind of like a testing the waters kind of way, if you don't mind, would you just pray for my sister Diana? She's going through a hard time in her marriage. She is resistant to church, and I just don't know what to do. The next week, Danica gets back on the huddle. She says, you guys, you wouldn't believe this, but 2 days after we started praying for her, she asked me if I would go to church with her. She's been resistant to that for years, and how in the world would that happen? And you guys, the whole huddle, with everybody on mute, starts clapping. You can't hear them, but you see them clapping, It's they're all just celebrating what's happening in Danica's life. Another week goes by, Danica gets back on. She says, you guys, Diana was in a car accident this week. She should not have walked away from that car accident, but she did with hardly a scratch on her. I don't think God is done with my sister. You guys, it was the whole huddle, kind of took ownership of this celebration, I prayed for that, and God answered that. We pray differently now in this huddle because of what God's already done in just the first 6 weeks of that huddle. Now, Danica and her cousin Kate, who's also in this huddle, they're teammates out in San Diego. The two of them are now leading a women's retreat this coming weekend and sharing their personal credos about what they believe about God with a group of women, and Diana's coming. I didn't lead a 10-week course on how to lead a women's retreat, by the way. So, but we are teaching them how to be leaders, and part of that is crafting their own personal credo. So we studied the Apostles' Creed and talked about fundamental truths that are essential, and how do you share those things in a conversational way, because a lot of what we had trained up to that point was how do you show your faith. Now we're talking about how to share your faith. How do we not just show the gospel, which is hugely important, but how do we talk about Jesus? And they've been articulating their own personal credo. And just the people taking brave steps. There was one young man terrified to say anything in huddle. And then we had one live teaching where everybody in the cohort logged on, and they were going to share their personal credos. This guy shared his personal credo, and he started with saying, I can't believe I'm about to do this. I'm scared out of my mind, but here goes. And the reason why is because he has 20 or 34 other people who are cheering him on, saying, "We got your back." Just incredible stuff, you guys. Let me show you just a little bit of what the online digital platform looks like. Tim's going to bring it over here for us so we can take a look at it. This is what the platform looks like. And Tim, if you just click into the cohort fall 2018, this is what it looks like for all the folks that started back in November. If you hit weeks 1 through 4 there, Tim, and resume that course, then you'll get to see just a little bit of what this looks like. And go to week 3, Tim, if you don't mind. In week 3, if you just scroll down just a little bit, there we go, the early church. Every week they log on to a 3-minute quick video from their facilitator. Kyrie Klopke is the facilitator here. Starts right off, and she starts talking them through, here's what Teach It's going to look like, here's what Train It's going to look like, here's what Try It's going to look like this week. Helps create some cohesiveness between all of the oh, there we go.
Try section each week.
Awesome.
Your huddles this week.
And then they'll click into the Teach It portion, and this is what they get.
Hey, I'm Ben Haupt. Welcome to another session of 1,000 Young Leaders. I'm really excited about some of the things that I'm going to share with you and tell you a little bit about.
Awesome, you can pause that, Tim. That's Ben Haupt. He's at the seminary in St. Louis. He was our guest teacher that week because he knows a lot more about the early church than I do. And he's able to show some incredible comparisons between a pre-Christian culture that existed from like Acts chapter 2 up to Constantine, so like the first 200-300 years, where the church was pushed to the margins, and how that's similar to what we see today in a post-Christian culture, and how the church is being pushed to the margins. So incredibly insightful teaching from Ben. Then we give them discussion questions to interact with, and as you kind of see these pop up here, Tim will just scroll through those. We have folks really digging into the content and wrestling with and engaging in conversation with each other. Since it's not in a classroom setting, we want to give them a space where they can learn from each other, because as you guys well know, the learning isn't just up front, it's in the room, and we want to create that space for them to do that. And then the Train It and the Try It piece just walks them through the kinds of things that we want them doing so they can be interacting and practicing the very things that we want them to be a part of. Tim, you can feel free to go back to the PowerPoint slide if you don't mind, and click onto the next one. So that's kind of how we engage with the folks in 1,000 Young Leaders. If we had just a little more time, I'd show you each of these videos. We have a Facebook group for that cohort where they interact with each other and they get to hear a little bit about each other's stories. And so we make sure that they're engaging with one another and not just hearing about each other as they're hearing stories. Every May, we're going to be gathering. Our first annual gathering is happening in 1 month in Nashville, and we're going to be inviting all current participants, both of Cohort 1, which launched in November, and Cohort 2, which gathered and launched April 1st, and the first teaching goes out tomorrow for Cohort number 2. They're all going to be invited and are coming to Nashville for an annual gathering. Alumni of 1,000 Young Leaders will always be invited to come back. So that 7 years from now, we'll have 1,000 millennials in the same spot, worshiping and celebrating the stories of how they're now making disciples themselves. One of the cool things that we've gotten to be a part of is we've been invited by Grand Canyon University to participate in how they develop their own curriculum and develop their courses. If you don't know about Grand Canyon University, they're now the fastest growing Christian university in the United States. Just 10 years ago, they had 800 students on campus. They now have 23,000, and they have 79,000 online students down in the Phoenix area. Brian Mueller is the president there, and he said, "We love what 1,000 Young Leaders is all about. Let us help you." They gifted us a team from their curriculum department and their theology department to help make sure that the things we were promising in 1,000 Young Leaders are actually being tracked and delivered upon as we go through the 2-year process. So we're able to measure objectives and see where we accomplish those things or how we could better accomplish them in the future. The investment to be a part of 1,000 Young Leaders, we invite them to be a part of 3 hours a week. They can do that on their phone, watching the teachings, listening to the teachings on their phone. It's all mobile friendly, super easy to pull up and listen to the teachings on their commute. They have a huddle for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes a week, and then usually the try-it piece is about 1 hour as well. So 3 hours a week. The cost is $250 per month for a team of 2. We want to make sure that people are going in teams, one, because it's biblical. Jesus sent people out in at least teams of 2, but also because we know that when one gets discouraged, the teammate brings encouragement so that you can get back up. And so we want to make sure that it's something that teams of 2 can be a part of, with a one-time registration fee of $100. The upcoming cohorts, we are just right now this week launching cohort number 2. And cohort number 3 will launch in November, and then cohort number 4 will launch next April in 2020. So here's where you guys come in a really important way. Because if this is something that you want to use as kind of rocket fuel to this discipling culture, by the way, one of the best voices to be able to accelerate the culture you seek to establish in your culture is not your voice, but it's somebody else who's doing this, for them to speak it out and say, this is something I'm learning that I want to invest in, that I want to be a part of. So we would encourage you to begin making a list of names right now. And whoever those people might be, maybe it's 4 people, 8 people, 10 millennials in your community, in your congregation that you want to be a part of. First thing you can do is speak belief into them. They are absolutely waiting to be invited to make a difference. They want somebody to pour into them, and they want somebody to expect something of them. So speak belief into them. I see potential in you. I love how you guys are invested here. Or I love the way you guys involve people. Man, you're a natural inviter. Wow, you ask great questions. Whatever it may be, speak belief into them. Let them know that you see them. The other thing is share 1,000 Young Leaders with them. Tell them that you heard about this and that you think that they'd be a great fit for it. They would receive that with just a ton of blessing. And then we want to challenge you to come alongside them financially. So is this something that your church can plan to support? We have churches who said, we want to set this money aside in our budget to send these folks to be a part of 1,000 Young Leaders because we need missionaries that will reach other millennials in our community. And then begin having conversations using allying language. The number one thing that a millennial is resistant to when it comes to 1,000 Young Leaders is, I'm just out of college, I'm just getting my feet wet, we just bought a house, or we just got an apartment, we need to buy furniture, I don't have the money, right? That's something where we can come around them and ally with them to be able to be a part of 1,000 Young Leaders. And we firmly believe that that's something that we collectively can take care of together. That's, if you wanted to send a team of 2, that's $3,000 a year in your budget that you could set aside to begin training missionaries who are going to be living on mission and making disciples within the next 2 years. Just an incredible opportunity for us to take hold of. With that, I think we got about 5 minutes. What questions do you have? I know I tried to kind of get through that fairly quickly. Tomorrow night, I'll be back here to do this. If you live in the Chicagoland area and you're like, man, I've got those 4 or 6 names of people who should be hearing this, invite them to be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and we're gonna do this presentation again for anybody in the Chicagoland area who may want to sponsor somebody, mentor somebody, be a participant in 1,000 Young Leaders, congregations that want to invest in this. We'd love to have you here tomorrow night too. Yeah, Chris, I think you had a question. 21 to 36. So great question. Who should be a part of 1,000 Young Leaders? We are specifically inviting 21 to 36-year-olds who are not church work professionals. If you have folks who are church workers, DCEs, pastors, church staff that want to invest in a discipling relationship, invite them to Immersion 3 with you next time and have them be a part of D2MC, because they're going to be looking at this from an organizational standpoint. We're specifically training and discipling missionaries who are not church work professionals to be on mission and make disciples. So great question. What other questions? Yeah.
So I fall within that age range, kind of on the young side, of course.
Sweet.
But you know, I'm wondering, because it's very media based. It's
Mhm.
very, you know, everything is done over the computer or your phone or an app or whatever. What kind of feedback do you have for somebody that would say, I don't want yet one more app on my phone. I don't want yet another post thing that I have to keep up with, because all of these people have Instagram and Facebook, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't want another thing that I have to do. I'm already involved in that. So how do you combat that?
Great. Probably when they first log on, they'll be saying, yep, I'm going to this website, I'm watching this video. Within 2 months, they'll be saying, I'm actually seeing my family. So it shifts from, I'm logging on to get a teaching. We're very aware that there's tons of great teaching material on YouTube. You can watch tons of teaching. What is specific about 1,000 Young Leaders is that we take them on a journey from wherever they're at to being able to make disciples and lead a community on mission. With that comes the huddle that they're a part of, where they're getting that coaching and they're interacting with other people who now are their prayer warriors. They're their people who they care about. They're asking about their lives. They're becoming like family. And so it's their native language. It's our native language, right? So we know how to get there and be quick and use it on the go and that type of thing. So it becomes very natural and almost second nature to be able to log in. But you don't feel like you're just logging in to get content. Okay. It's not just one more thing where I have to do one more thing. It's like, no, my huddle is depending on me to bring some conversation around this. They're going to be praying for me. I'm praying for them. I want to hear how they're doing. Is that helpful? Yeah. Awesome. Good. Another question? Yeah, Matt.
We had kind of two objections when we were doing this, and there was really interesting conversation. One was, we're in a very mobile stage of our life. What if we move? And so the conversation was clearly, we believe you're worth investing in, whether you're here or not. So we're going to invest in you, and you're going to impact the kingdom wherever you go. But it's about you being worth investing in, and that helped. The other one is someone saying, we're in a stage of life, we're going through job change, we're having kids, and we said, those are the people we want you to reach. So, great. You're in the middle of chaos of having kids, you're going to relate to so many people. And
Huge.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's where we're extremely sensitive to make sure that a 3-hour-a-week commitment doesn't turn into a 20-hour-a-week commitment. This is going to be able to help you as you go, not require you to stop everything else and do this. And Matt, you guys have 4 people going through it now? Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Final thought or question? Yeah, go for it.
Perception that it's a couples only.
Oh, great. It's not couples only. We have recent college graduates, single, married, parents, no parents. They have, it's the whole range there. We have LCMS, non-LCMS. We have, we're growing in our diversity across the spectrum as well, and really pleased with how God is growing that area.
So you do want a partner.
Yes, we want a teammate. Absolutely. So great question. We don't want them to go alone. If they don't know who their teammate is right now, that's okay. Get plugged in, sign up, and we want to come alongside you and pray for whoever that teammate might be so they can join you as you discover who that is. So you guys have been talking about people of peace. That's one of the first things that we share with them. Your teammate should be that person of peace, a huge person of peace to you that can come alongside you, be your teammate. Good. Yeah, last question. So we had first cohort of 35 people, and I think second cohort launches this week with 28, 32, something like that. We have late additions into it, so we're right around the 30 mark with this cohort. We'll probably bring in another 35 to 45 this fall. Next year, we'll bring in 100 people into 1,000 Young Leaders, and the year after that, it'll be 200 every year as we develop it. Yeah. Good. I need to pass the baton, but if you have questions, would love to sit with you at dinner tonight or connect with you during a break tomorrow. Thanks for your time, you guys.
Yeah, there we go.